Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another video on the channel. This is day number 4 of the World Cup done, and here's the review. Some really interesting games, lots of goals as well, by the way. By far the most amount of goals scored um, on a singular day. Everyone went crazy, to be honest. Scoring left, right and central, and yeah, um, there were some really good games. Starting off with Germany. I mean, Germany. You are playing Curacao, not Brazil. So take it easy, man. Germany just had to go and win 7-1 again. They just had to do it. They just had to do it. And you know what, right? The first 25 minutes, Germany obviously started very strongly. They got the early goal, the matcher. Great strike, great curling goal. But then they actually sort of they had the chances. They were the team that were in control, but they allowed Curacao back into the game. Right? Curacao had a couple of half chances, not full chances, but then their goal was a good chance and they scored. And it just felt like, hold up a minute, right? Germany should be winning this game 4 or 5-0, but they've conceded. And is there a chance Curacao can get something out of this game? Ultimately, they didn't and they couldn't. But that first 25 minutes was just a little bit of a shock in terms of the fact that Curacao got back into the game after Germany's, dominance in the first 25 minutes. And there was that little bit of, okay, how are Germany going to respond? How are Curacao going to respond? Germany continued after dominating again, and they got their goal. Schlotterbeck, he's a fantastic player. I talked about him before a couple of weeks ago. Real Madrid, I think, should be signing him over Bastoni, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But he already had, two headers earlier. One was saved, and was the other one off the post or was it saved? I don't remember. But anyways, he had two attempts on target before, I believe, and they were saved or missed, but it was on target, right? And every corner Germany had, Schlotterbeck was on the end of it, and you just knew that he was going to score at some point, which he did. Good header, flicked in at the near post, and then Germany 2-1 up. They get a penalty. Yes, it's a penalty for sure. The match, I believe it was, gets tripped by the keeper. It's gonna be a penalty, right? There's contact. It's enough contact. It doesn't have to be, a whack. That's enough contact. Havertz steps up and scores, and you just feel like it's over, right? At that point, it just feels like, yeah, how many are Germany going to get? They came out early in the second half. Musiala got his goal. Nathaniel Brown's got a really good goal as well, and then Undav wrapped it up with another, and then Kai Havertz actually got the final goal. And made it 7. But what I sort of take away is Germany are a fantastic side. They are a good side. They have quality, right? Wirtz, Musiala, Havertz. The match is a great player. I was really, confused, and I'm sure this is not something that has just happened, but I've always been confused as to why Stiller doesn't play, and maybe he doesn't fit the system and the profile of player that Nagelsmann needs. But having a player like Stiller on the bench, not coming on at all, it's a waste. I think it's a fantastic player, Angelo Stiller, and I think it's a waste. But look, if it works without him, and Pavlovic and Nemecha as the duo is better, fair enough, right? But yeah, in general, the amount of quality in the midfield and attack they have is incredible. Even defensively, right? Nathaniel Brown is a great left back. You've got Raum as the backup. Kimmich is a fantastic player. Unselfish. Could have scored could have scored the goal. Um, one of the goals, was it the Undav goal? I believe it was. But he didn't. He was unselfish, and yeah, they've got great centre backs. Schlotterbeck, like I said, Ty is a good player. Rudiger on the bench. Um, but there is a bit of vulnerability defensively, and yeah, Curacao were never going to really win this game. I don't think anyone expected them to even get a point from this game, but they did score. They did give Germany a couple of headaches along the way as well. So, look, Germany got the job done. They won in fashion, but defensively, yeah, they could still ship a couple of goals. That's sort of what I'm thinking. But you know what? Um, really good win from Germany, and I mean their goal difference is +6 now. Um, looking at their next game, they have got I forgot who's in their group. They have got Ivory Coast, who we'll get on to in just a second. I think that will be their biggest test in this group, and let's see how they do. But look, I expect them to make it out of the group stages. Um, they're in a slightly favorable group, which kind of helps. But yeah, great performance from Germany. And then we had the probably the you know best game in terms of, I would say, the quality being similar or the closest it got between two sides, which is Netherlands against Japan. In fact, what has been the best game so far in terms of two teams actually um, um, being having played, right? I think Brazil Morocco is still the probably you know the two teams that have been, the two strongest teams that have played each other so far. Um, I would also say Ivory Coast Ecuador, which we'll get onto in just a second, is another game that I looked at on paper, right? Two teams that are just incredible. Um, but yeah, Netherlands and Japan, the two favorites in this group, along with Sweden, which we'll get onto as well in just a second. Drawing. Um, Look, I think both teams will look at it as a missed opportunity, but I would say more so Netherlands because they went and took the lead twice, and they failed to keep it twice. Um, a late goal as well to concede. You know, Netherlands are that team that you just don't look at and think, oh, they're going to reach the quarters or the semis, and it just feels like any team can beat Netherlands or any team that are, of a decent level. With all due respect, I think Netherlands can beat obviously a lot of teams, but for example, Germany, I reckon Germany beat Netherlands. I reckon so, and yeah, Netherlands, took the lead after a first half where not a lot happened, but Netherlands scored. Van Dijk with the header, great header, directed it into that bottom right hand side, and then Japan scored right after. Great finish, great goal, and then you just felt like, yeah, it's going to just stabilize a bit. Then Somerville scored an incredible left-footed goal. Then it felt like Netherlands were going to just wrap up the game. They were going to get the win, and then from the corner, headed in by Kamada, and it's a draw. Um, I would say the second half is probably one of the best games or best halves that we've seen in the World Cup so far. I think both teams were just at it. They were both um, relentless going forward. But yeah, a very good game. Um, and Japan are a very underrated team. They are really underrated. Um, but yeah, not much else to say really. Just a lot of goals. Moving on, we have got Ivory Coast beating Ecuador 1-0. Now, this game, would have been a 0-0 had it not been Amad Diallo with the last minute goal. By the way, what a goal that was, right? You know, the way the ball was coming at him from on the ground, like he just sort of like kicks it, like side kicks it. I don't even know how to explain that, but go and watch the goal, right? You'll understand what I mean. That finish is incredible. Ecuador, man, like some really good chances missed. Ivory Coast deserved to win. They were the better team in an attacking point of view. Um, and yeah, I mean, it kind of shows you that the quality on the pitch in this game was really good. You know, it was 0-0 for basically 90 minutes until Amad Diallo scored. Um, Look, Ecuador have an incredible team, man. Like Pacho, Hincapié, Caicedo, Eder Valencia. But I mean, Ivory Coast in their attack, they have got a lethal attack. Diomande, I think he's gonna get his move to. I mean, it could well be Liverpool still, but I reckon PSG, Amad Diallo as a sub, a super sub. You know, literally a super sub. Nicolas Pepe. I think they're Ali Wahi as well. So yeah, lots of quality for Ivory Coast going forward. Um, and look, I think this is a group where we could see easily the third place team be one of the better ones. I mean, they have got Curacao in their group along with Germany. Germany, Ivory Coast, and Germany, Ecuador are going to be two games that are going to be big, right? How these two teams play against Germany and what kind of results they get in that Germany game is going to be key, because I could see Ivory Coast especially get something against Germany. Ecuador, I just think going forward they're not lethal enough. They're not clinical enough. Defensively, like I said, they're good. Hincapié, Pacho, Caicedo, like they've got good players in the midfield and defense. But going forward, very suspect. And then again, right? They're playing Curacao as well. With all due respect, that should be a game where you expect these teams to win 3-4, 5-0. But again, Curacao did show in that Germany game that, you know, in the first half, they did put up a fight. And can Ivory Coast and Ecuador give us a second half like Germany did against Curacao? And if they do, things could get ugly against Curacao. And, you know, these teams will get better goal differences. They'll get the 3 points on the board. For Ivory Coast, they'll get at least 6 points. But yeah, massive win for Ivory Coast. I think Ecuador still consider themselves lucky that they've got Curacao in their group. Like I said, with all due respect, and that can be a bit of a pick up in terms of momentum and morale, as that's their next game, right? That is the game where you go there, you get a big win, you get the points on the board, and then hopefully you get to be one of the better third place finishers team, right? But that's it. They still play Germany as well. But yeah, really good game, really tight game, really close game, and let's see. Lastly, we had Sweden 5, Tunisia 1. I have Sweden as my dark horses this year. Okay, in my World Cup predictions, if you guys haven't already checked it out, go and check it out. In my predictions, I believe I put them into a World Cup semi-finals, right? And again, right, it's just to have a bold prediction, right? I don't actually believe they will, although I do feel like they will. But the reason I feel like they will is that attack. Isak and Gyökeres, when they are fit, when they are cooking, they are incredible, right? They are incredible. And then you've got players like Ayari, scoring twice. Two absolute bangers by Ayari from long range, right? Isak, clinical finish. Gyökeres, good finish. Svanberg, good finish. Right? You've also got quality like Larson and Lucas Bergville, right? In the midfield. The way Graham Potter set it up was interesting. But yeah, look at that team, right? Hein, Lindelöf, Goodmanson, Ayari, and then you've got the likes of Bergville, Svensson, Elanga, Svanberg. Um, they've got so much quality. I don't even think Larsson's in it. Is Larsson in this? I don't even think Larsson has been part of that squad. But anyways, like their team is still really, really, really strong. Um, and yeah, this was sort of like the game where they just had to go out there and get a couple of goals and show what they can do, because I think Sweden are a good team. I think they can score, and their next game is against the Netherlands, right? Not an easy game. Then the game after is against Japan, right? I think that will be a lot closer than people expect. I think people will look at it and think, okay, Japan are gonna win, and they could win. Of course they can, but I think Sweden will put up a good fight against both Japan and the Netherlands, for sure. But yeah, that is that. Let me know what thoughts are down below. Hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel on already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.